It is now 6:03. Sorry for our tardiness, and we'll now call to order this Brunswick City Commission regular scheduled commission meeting for Wednesday, February 4th, 2026. If we could all please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Father God, thank you for this time that we all come together to work on the issues of the city. Thank you for protecting us through inclement weather that passed through. Thank you for ensuring that our community stayed safe. Thank you to all of our public works and safety officials who ensure the community also moved through that time of cold weather. Father God, continue to watch over us. In your son Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now move on to the approval of the agenda and the adoption of the February 4th, 2026 regular scheduled meeting agenda. Do we have any addendums or subtractions?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have
Yes, ma'am.
one addendum.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to add as item number, I'd like to move to add item number 3A. Consider approval of resolution number 2026-01, authorizing the filling of an application with the State Road and Tollway Authority.
Second.
Here in the first and the second, all those in favor show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
I just wanted to make sure Commissioner Harris is on, right? Okay, I just want to make sure. With that, the motion passes and item 3A is added. We will now move on if there are any other addendums or subtractions. Hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the agenda as amended.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the meeting agenda as amended.
Here in the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Here in the first and the second, all those in favor show by sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to items to consider for approval. Consider approval of January 21st, 2026 work session and regular scheduled meeting minutes. Is there any changes that need to be made? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move to approve the January 21st, 2026 work session and regular scheduled meeting minutes.
Here in the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Here in the first and the second, all those in favor show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to number 3, which is consider approval to declare public works and fire department vehicles and equipment surplus. Mr. Charnock.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think that mic is off on you.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. All righty, we've got the item on the agenda tonight to declare the listed items surplus. You have copies of that. There is one small change which I left for each of you here, and it was taken to the Finance Committee already, that I got some different auction numbers for the fire equipment, which I really am not familiar with, and I had done the best I could, but I got a better estimate. So unfortunately, that better estimate's a little lower, but it's on there on the sheet that I had given to you. We come before you ever so often to declare vehicle surplus that are either not being used or they need to be replaced. And we've got a long list of those that we gave to you here. And these items are to be declared surplus. And there is an estimated value that I've got listed there for each item. All the items, is if you approve these tonight, they will be auctioned off on govdeals.com, which has been our source for auctioning, and they will have all the proceeds go to the general fund as you approve them. You have 3 options that you can approve the vehicles and equipment to be sold as surplus. You can keep a portion of the items off the surplus list if you choose to do that, or you could do nothing at this time. So I'd be glad to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Charnock. Questions and comments?
Mr. Turner, I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, this is really being funny, but so on this paper, it says the fire surplus list. So the Dodge, what did the fire department do with a Dodge Charger?
It was an old police vehicle handed down to them. And that's one of the things we do. If we have surplus and it can be repurposed, we'll try to hand it off, and the fire department used that car for a few years.
Okay, okay, that was just.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for City Attorney Corey. Mr. Corey, after looking over this list, obviously I support selling these surplus vehicles. I had a question about restricting these funds or the assets that are gained from these auction of vehicles and earmark them and keep them in the same department, so i.e. the fire department and public works. Would I just include that if I were to choose to make a motion? Is that kosher?
I think, I mean, you can always direct how you might want that spent. That might be something that would be in consideration going through the budget process, maybe with the city manager. Typically, I think the surplus funds just go into the general fund. But I may be wrong on that. I might defer to Ms. Regina.
No, they actually go into the general fund. We budget for a portion, well, we budget for what an estimate of sale of property, and that type of thing. So normally, the money that goes back into the budget goes back into the budget. It's just like for insurance proceeds, they go back into the budget. It gets a little, I guess, it can be designated, but
Yeah, I should
I
have said
think
that.
it-
I think that was the question. Legally,
yeah, it
yes, you
can
can
be designated, but normally it's not. And if it could be restricted for or allocated in the next budget or something, generally that is if we have excess funds.
Gotcha. So in this year's fiscal budget, you estimated the sale of these vehicles and have a line item in the budget now?
We do, but it's not, normally they did not say which vehicles were going to be sold.
Right.
So we kind of do an estimate, but it's not necessarily based on these vehicles.
I got you. And my thought process again is I don't want to restrict or tie too many strings onto our budget. But I do know that, we've had meetings with the fire department, and I do know working with Public Works that, both of those teams are in need of some new equipment and are looking to potentially expand services and the level of care we provide to our citizens. So that was my consideration with, this is money that we've already invested in both of those departments. And my thought process is we're selling those vehicles. I'd love to kind of keep that money, to support those entities is my thought process.
Well, and generally, if we had excess funds, I think that would be appropriate. But, we already have payments, capital leases and things like that for the fire department that we're still paying off in the next budget. So until it gets excess, I would just put it back into the general fund. That would be my recommendation.
Additional questions or comments? Got a few.
I'm gonna let it go because I understand, and I understand your recommendation. And I know that we don't have extra excess funds according to, what you just stated. But I really support Mayor Pro Temp Saby as to we should just go ahead and restrict this spending to the fire department. Like she said, we are planning on providing higher level services for our citizens and to ensure that they all have medical. And so we won't be caught that we won't be able to provide that service. That's important to us as a commission. So if it's, I understand the recommendation, but I think that we should go ahead and direct those funds as restricted for the fire department.
Thank you, Commissioner, and Mayor Pro Tem. Um, I have a general question about some individual ones on here, and I do
Sure.
one individual one. You guys have a 2008 Ford Explorer. It has about 80,000 miles on it, and it says the vehicle starts and runs. Um, what were we doing with that vehicle before, if you happen to know? Just wondering.
Um, this is one of the ones under Public Works here. You talking about that very first one,
Yep.
2008? Okay.
Yep, stock number 74102.
I'm not 100% sure where that was as far as usage or whatever. But when they start getting that old, they typically have a lot of issues. Now, I always issue or try to disclose for auction purposes because I want our reputation to be good, whether it starts and runs or whether it doesn't. And I say that because it may have problems down the road. You know, if you're driving the vehicle at 40 miles an hour, maybe there's transmission issues or something of that nature. We can't anticipate that. And a lot of these vehicles have sat for a little while once they've come out of service. So that vehicle may not have been driven much in the last, say, year or so.
And I want to lock in that I'm assuming all of these vehicles or equipment is being sold as is on
Absolutely.
photos and all that. Okay. The other one I wanted to ask about was the Ford E350 van, and it says it starts what yeah, it says that one starts and runs as well. Looks like that one is a 2010. Is that one kind of in the same ballpark?
Well, it's kind of rough. That's one of our old prison vans where we had the prison crews that work for the city.
Mhm.
And the inside is in not
Yeah.
real great shape, but it does start and run.
Okay.
Some people are just looking for the frame or the Hulk
Mhm.
and they'll redo. So that's
Yeah.
something that we can sometimes make some money on.
Okay. Um, the reason I asked those questions about the one specifically that starts and runs, especially the Ford Explorer, is that I am oftentimes well aware that there are people in our community who would love a $2,000
Mm-hmm.
Ford Explorer that
Right.
starts and runs and could get them around town.
Sure.
And Gov Deals is maybe not the easiest place for those who that would be most advantageous for to use. And my other thought process in that is there might be those who work for us
Mhm.
inside the city of Brunswick that could use a car that starts and runs. And so, in terms of how all of that is worked, I'm just asking questions out of my
Sure.
ignorance. If we were to pull cars that start and run, if we were to make that car available, I'm assuming as the city, we would have to make that car available to everyone, or could we make that car available to employees of the city of Brunswick first and then move it to?
We have done that for it. I would cede to Ms. Regina on that as far as the legalities or city attorney, but I know we, on smaller dollar items,
Mhm.
we have done that sometimes in the past, but
Okay.
I don't recall doing any vehicles.
Okay. If that is a question, I'm just trying to figure out what territory I'm working in.
Yeah, I think it might be a question that's better answered if I could follow up with sort of the law and the legalities surrounding how these types of dollar level items would need to be handled. But for the most part, I believe vehicles is one of those categories that is listed as having to be declared surplus and sold to at an auction bid type, open to the general public
Okay.
type sale.
Okay.
And I believe that's just, and so that's why I think Gov Deals is probably the easiest and quickest way to get these things done. I don't think it's the only way to do it,
Mhm.
but we'd still need to open it up, declare it surplus and offer it to the general public.
Okay. And let's, I'll leave this to the will of the commission. But I'd love to at least remove the Ford Explorer, which is $2,000 value, not overarchingly, just to maybe test what that looks like. The only reason
Mhm.
being is I think the more we can pour into people in our community who may be looking for that, Gov Deals is going to be scooped up by the people who know how to work that system,
Mhm.
and oftentimes going to put them in a system with people who are very used to bidding in that kind of system.
Sure.
So I put that to the commission, but we definitely don't have to go that way. Those are all of my questions. I know we got Commissioner Harris online, so I didn't want to move past. Commissioner Harris, any questions?
Just a statement, and that's regarding the earmarking those funds. I think that a little more consideration and review of that needs to be done before we just say earmarking that, because we do have to understand the effect and how that plays out on our budget.
Yes, ma'am. We definitely hear that. Um, with that being said, oh, additional questions?
Question. That Ford Explorer, I think some of the questions you had, Mr. Mayor, and I looked at that as it starts to run. I'm like, well, why is it on here? Can you bring the pictures up here right quick? I
Mhm.
don't have my laptop with me.
Sure.
Because it may, I think.
That should be the very first one. Let me find it real
I don't.
quick.
You have-
Oh, yeah.
So. Then I'm like,
See, that was 74102, which is on that first page. For sure, it's going to probably need new tires and things like that. So you're going to end up spending $700, $800 alone on cheap tires. So
Mr. Charnock.
yes, ma'am.
So when you all go to the wherever.gov place to surplus, do you have to carry a certain amount, or can you just carry one at a
I
time?
can do one at a time. I can do them in multiples. There's no restriction on
No
that.
restriction. So pulling this particular one vehicle out as a possible chance, and
Mhm.
then, we just say it's a dead end, we could just, so you could take it on later.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I will offer this to the commission. I think we got a host of questions. Mine pretty simple one. I just want to know how that works and if we can make it work for the citizens, if we can, if it makes sense. But we also have some questions around. It seems like the thought of earmarking these funds in this specific area, which may be some additional questions that we want to ask Attorney Corey and work with city manager on what that may look like, if I'm hearing us correctly. So if it doesn't put a monkey wrench in anything
Mm.
that you got going on,
Yeah.
maybe deferral of this item and some more discussion.
And as we discussed, I could remove any items that the commission wants to exclude from this list.
Perfect.
The one thing to keep in mind is before these go to gov deals, I do have to advertise in the paper for a couple weeks. So, it would slow that process down. It'll cost us a little more advertising, excuse me, if we decide that we're going to put it back on gov deals. So that's the only, I guess, danger or whatever.
Got you. I appreciate that.
Mayor, can we not move forward with this item, but remove the item that you're addressing as a testing? Because I think the purposing of doing it through gov deals is to maximize the return expounded previously for these vehicles. And as a recovery type of situation, that when you're talking about earmarking these monies, that now you can really support earmarking those monies.
No,
Because if we start to kind of shortening ourselves on what we're receiving versus what we paid for the vehicle, and now that starts to affecting our budget, I think we can do it as a test before we just say we don't do it for any of them.
Oh no, I'm completely fine
Hmm.
pulling my one vehicle off. That's not a problem with me. And I think I was more maybe providing space. It seemed like Mayor Pro Tem Saby and Commissioner Atkinson Williams wanted some additional information around earmarking these funds. I don't know which way the motion goes, but I'm happy to put it before the commission either way. I was just providing that. Maybe if anyone needed additional time on that.
Well, the surplusing the vehicles doesn't necessarily designate specifically. Once it's surplus, they're sold, the funds are there. So if the commission wants to make a decision after that, it's nothing, you know, I mean, you still have the opportunity to make that decision. Yes.
That's perfect. Well, if that is the case, I don't have any more questions. I'll open it for a motion.
The values that you put here, and I know it says an auction, so we could get less than the amount that you estimated of the return, less than the 88.
That is true. Part of my background was I was service manager in car dealers for over 12 years. So I have some background, not in the fire trucks. That's why I had to get some help. But I think those estimates, and I look back on what we've sold in the past and what the dollar amounts were. So I think they're pretty close. Normally they come out either close or sometimes they go above.
Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we declare the listed vehicles both for Public Works and the fire department as surplus, excluding the Ford Explorer item number 74102. And I will make a note that in this motion, I would love once these transactions have completed, if the city manager would just come and report back to us what the amount of those vehicles were, and then for further discussion, consider keeping those funds from the sale of these vehicles in the same department. But that'll be, again, a further discussion.
Could I ask for clarification on the motion? If I'm understanding some of the discussion, it was that the Ford Explorer be declared surplus but not be submitted to Gov Deals. Is that correct?
That's
Or is
correct.
it?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So it would still, the motion would need to be that all of the listed items be declared surplus, but that the Explorer be removed from the items being submitted to Gov Deals.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's great. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to amend my motion. I'd like to amend my motion to say that we declare all the items that have been submitted by staff, both for Public Works and the fire department, we declare all these assets as surplus. However, we remove item number 74102, the 2008 Ford Explorer, from being auctioned at gov.deals, deals.gov, whatever. For the sale of that, and then we'll have additional discussion as we move forward on how we'll auction off or sell, dispose of that asset.
I'll hear that as a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Charnock.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item 3A, consider approval of resolution number 2026-01, authorizing the filing of an application with the State Road and Tollway Authority. Director Albertson.
Good evening. So as you said, this is an item related to a funding application through the Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank, which is a financial institution of the State Road and Tollway Authority. They provide funding, construction funding typically for roadway projects throughout the state. We use them, you may remember, for some funding through a loan for the Magnolia Park Phase 2 project several years back. This time we are dealing with the Bay Newcastle Roundabout project. As you know, we're working through the design process on that. Our latest schedule estimate has us having the project ready to go to bid later this fall of 2026. So we want to look at getting our funding lined up so that when it is approved by GDOT and ready to go to bid, that we have all of our ducks in a row and ready to move forward as well. So the GTIB offers two types of funding. They offer grant funding, they offer loan funding, and then they offer a package funding, which you can go after both, loan or grant. And that's what we're looking at doing here. And part of what they require with the application is a resolution stating that what we're going for and that we, if awarded, we're prepared to repay the funds and any local match that's required. There's no local match requirement to the grant. We are planning to provide some local match from our SPLOST funds. We feel like that'll help our application, but it's not a requirement. This is a breakdown of planning for the application is to request, the total project cost estimate right now is at $4.18 million for construction. That's construction only. The engineering and design that we're funding currently have under contract, and we're funding that through our own SPLOST dollars. So this is construction money only that we're discussing. We're planning to request $2 million in the grant funding from them, $1 million in loan funding, and the remainder, the $1.18 million, would come from our SPLOST roadway money, SPLOST 22. Obviously, there's no repayment on the grant funding if awarded. The loan funding, we would probably request about a 5-year repayment period. I forget the interest rate. I believe it's around 2.25%, 2.5% over a 5-year period. That would most likely be repaid by SPLOST funds. We're running a little higher on our SPLOST funds now, so hopefully we could use enough of the excess to repay that loan over the 5-year period. That's kind of it for the package. $2 million of grant funding, $1 million of loan funding, and then the remainder, 1.18 for the project balance to come out of our local money. If funded, we would come back to you for approvals on the grant or the loan. We're not asking to be locked down into anything, not committing to anything right here. This is just a requirement to go along with the application. Says that, our city government is aware that the application and they approve the application being submitted. So.
Thank you, Director. Questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Darrell, Mr. Everson. One, you mentioned that you're requesting $2 million for the grant. Is there a max or minimum for the grant funding?
There is, there's a minimum, I think, is $25,000 for the grant funding. The maximum, I believe, is 25%, I believe, of their entire budget, which we're not nearing that. But after you go over $2 million, they start to request some special considerations there for their grant funding. And I did not bring that grant information with me. I can find out, I can get that information and tell you exactly what those stipulations are, but they apply some stipulations if you ask for a grant funding over $2 million.
Okay. So in reality, if I'm looking at it right, we're looking at $2.1 million $2.1 million, a little over that, that the city will pay for out of SPLOST money. Because if we get a loan for $1 million and we already send the 1.180.
Right.
So
In the end, we're going to pay back, we're going to pay
2.18.
2.18 plus some interest over it. Right.
More than 50%. Okay. I mean, I just want to make sure I was thinking.
Commissioner,
Right.
the grant cap they cap it at 2 million. If you go over the 2 million, it can't be any more than 33% of the project cost.
Oh,
So we are at the, cost that we can be
okay.
for that, for the grant portion.
Good to know. Thank you. I'm good.
Yes, ma'am.
And, and that's why I, in yesterday's meeting, addressed with them, going out to other, avenues to secure some additional fundings or to make additional ask. And I know Regina talked about the state, it is a state road. And so, she's going to be moving forward to ask, make another ask. I'm not sure if she said she already had an ask, but she's gonna make an ask of the state to, participate in the cost.
I do have one more question. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee. The interest rate in your years of experience for this loan funding is 2.5. Is more than in the past, or it's just right? I'm just looking at, or it's been the same?
I don't remember off the top of my head the interest rate that we got several years ago with the Magnolia Park, but I feel like this is a pretty well within in the market right now.
Within the market,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Thank you, that's all.
Just a couple quick questions for me. Is the grant funding contingent upon taking the loan funding, or are those two separate decisions?
I understand it to be completely separate.
Completely separate.
I don't think there's a relationship there.
Okay. And just in general, and this may be a question for city manager, what financial institutions locally loan for projects of $1 million and more? Do we know? Is that something, our bank Prime South, is that something, I don't know, South Coast or whoever, do they loan for these types of projects?
I'm not sure, in terms of the local loan, I guess, providers.
Or any
Um,
provider for that matter. It doesn't have to be local. I just wanted to start out local, but.
There are not a lot for these type projects, and that's why the state does loans.
Mhm.
GMA used to provide a program for infrastructure, but they no longer do. In terms of the interest rates, those are tied to Georgia, the GFA, Georgia fund rates.
Mhm.
And the 2.5% is kind of a low interest rate. They consider it a low interest rate loan.
Okay.
So I would be surprised if the market was lower than that.
Okay. If these two things are not contingent on one another, and we can send a grant in and it's no problem, I would, I'm not trying to say we don't. So obviously I'm not trying to stop it. We can do whatever the commission would like, but I would like us to be sure that there aren't lower rates instead of assuming or hoping. And if there are other entities, I think a comparative analysis of interest rates for projects in this kind of range would be fair, just to so the commission would know what those things are. Do we have any idea the 2 point? I could do the math. I'm just trying to figure it out. But the 2.5% over 5 years for the $1 million, what is that final interest payment?
I'll run the numbers on it in just a moment, but I wanted to also let you know that the reason that we're combining is because generally there's a low probability of projects being approved if it's grant only.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. Like,
yeah,
these
if
two
it's-
things work in concert with one another.
Right. They give us
Okay.
on their website, it says that grant only applications are 17%.
Okay.
Loan applications are 75% if it's loan only. And then applications requesting both are 58%.
Okay.
The thing is, based on the SPLOST, we can pay the loan off early. And there's no penalty for prepaying or paying the loan off. So it could work where the city gets the grant, gets the loan approved. We determine that our SPOS dollars can cover it, and we pay the loan off immediately.
Perfect. I think that would have been my follow-up question. One of my follow-up questions is it seems like we're going a loan route of 1 million and then a cash route of 1.18. And my question there would be a percentage of what percentage of SPLOS projects are currently running over on how much they cost us? So if I take a list of the projects, just like this one, all of the projects we've started, and we said, hey, we started this thing out, and when we first started out, we said it was going to be 4.18 million. And it ended up being, say, 5.2. I don't know what it is, or 4.5, whatever it is. Are all of the projects running over?
Compared to our cost estimate from, say, when we voted on SPOS?
Right. When
I would guess most likely, yes, they are
Okay.
all over.
Okay. And do we find that the reason that is, I'm really asking, is because those overages happen over time, which is causing us to spend money differently than we originally estimated. Whereas before, what I'm trying to get to is if you bond a whole project and you just get it done, are you saving money? Or are we actually doing that and we're going in and there's no way to ensure that those overages don't happen? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I understand that.
I would say that, when we get the construction of that project, we already have the funding such as this. Once we bid that project, we get that construction cost locked in. We have the funding to put forward toward it. So it's kind of like, even if we did the bonds, which would bring the money to be sitting in the bank waiting for that project, that's what this kind of does, because we will have the grant, the fund, the loan, the money. And once that construction project is bid, then the price is locked in.
But potentially a cost. I mean, you bring up some good points. The increased cost from when potentially we initially discussed the project and voted on them. Part of the price increase, correct me if I'm wrong, is because we never designed those projects before they got approved, right? So a lot of these are the new numbers, the updated numbers are post-design, so we have a more accurate number versus an estimate before.
True, that's true. The projects that are running over compared to, say, when SPLOS was voted on, those overages occurred in the design process. There are some, once we get to construction, I think y'all are both saying, we're much more certain on what that cost is. Now, there are some things, some unknowns like we're seeing that sometimes drive the cost a little bit higher, but for the most part, once we get to construction, that cost is pretty well locked in,
So let me ask this, with the clarity that Mayor Pro Tem Saby just provided, it took me to the consideration or the thought of, is this now a way we should now be looking to proceed with projects, is that we not only estimate the design costs, but also the construction costs, therein flipping it that we have less likely of a potential to run into overages?
I would say that from a joint, sitting on the Joint Water and Sewer Commission, we're moving to more of a design build concept and getting that all up front. And that's something I think, we could potentially look at from the city perspective to kind of do it all at one time under one contract. And so the person that's doing the design is also in charge of doing the build, and we're able to control a little bit more costs that way. But I would say from this application standpoint, and correct me if I'm wrong, either city manager or director, it makes sense to go after these funds. I think, to me, that interest rate sounds really good. I would like to see, to the mayor's point, how it compares to our GFA, loans, and also with being now a Plan First community and having that designation, they said we get an extra 1% off. So how does that factor in? And does it apply to this loan as well? But if we go ahead and apply for this and we are awarded these numbers, then it's I think you stated earlier that you'll bring it back to us and then we
Right.
can approve whether or not to accept the funds or accept the loan or not, or whatever.
Right.
And we could always walk away if we needed to,
Right.
but I think it makes sense to, the way this capital stack is, to, I think to get where you were saying that we get more points for having some grant, having some loan, and then having some of our own skin. That all.
And I did run the numbers on an amortization for 5 years at 2.56. The $1 million would cost $66,000 of interest.
Thank you for that. I think for me, one of the things that I want to always do completely as we're moving forward, 2.5% is what I believe would probably be the lowest rate. But I don't like probably will be if we're dealing with $1 million. You know, I just don't like probably. I like to know, and I like to see it in front of us so we can be clear on that decision. And the thing that I worry about inside of the funding stack is between us approving, I guess in my brain, between us approving 1.18, right, which is the splossed version of it, which is a kind of stagnant version. The things that 1.18 is dedicated to, say if it was dedicated to construction or asphalt, whatever, however long it is between this moment right now and we get the money and we find the person to do it and then we approve the project, that number could have shifted just in sheer value of how much it costs to now do it. And the reason I say that is because at least a couple projects I know that's happened while I've been here. Like we approved it. We said it was all good. Let's go do it. And from that moment that we said yes to doing the project, that number moved and we had to come back and figure it out again, which I that just may be, and I'm sure is the nature of construction. But the better way and the best way that we can ensure that we kind of don't move in that cyclical nature is what I just want to ensure we chip away at, especially on something that makes sense, because this completely makes sense. And thank you for the numbers of letting me know that putting the funding in with a grant and loan together, you get a 57% rate of approval versus the 16. So I don't have any more questions. If the commission doesn't either, I'll open it up for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve resolution 2026-01, authorizing the filing of an application with the State Road and Tollway Authority.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and second, all those in favor show by sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Director.
Yes, sir.
We will now move on to city attorney items. Number 4, consider adoption ordinance number 1089, amendment to chapter 23, waiver application process procedures. City Attorney Corey.
Sure. If it's all right, I'll just stay seated since we have online as well, but this is relatively simple. I think there was one change that had been requested and was made. It's redlined on page 3, that the waiver running with the land, a waiver shall run with the land and remain valid for subsequent owners, provided that development occurs and is completed in conformity with the approved plans. That would lock the waiver into the place where it had been approved and then would run in perpetuity with the land. And running with the land would include, as I think this was a question last time, it would be grandfathered in, so they would have the right to rebuild in the event of an act of God. That was, I think, all that was that came out of the last discussion. The ordinance had been advertised. We did not receive comments. We did hold a public hearing. The only comment related to a change in the ordinance from the public hearing was from that discussion and was made. And so it is before you now, having complied with the zoning and procedures law, and is available for approval.
Any questions or comments for City Attorney? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the amendment to chapter 23 and ordinance number 1089, the waiver applications process procedure as presented by City Attorney.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and second, all those in favor show by sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, City Attorney. With that, we'll now move on to an update on cemeteries.
Yes.
Director Alverson.
Oops, sorry.
Come back.
Yes, back to talk about cemeteries. We kind of started this conversation with Commissioner Atkinson Williams a while back, and we have an ordinance that was prepared a few years ago. It was before my time with Public Works. I'm not sure how long where it made it through the process, but some of you may be familiar with that. But we've got an ordinance, and we've got, I guess you call it a procedures document, regulations and operating procedures document that we're still doing some editing to make sure that those two match and there's no conflicts or exclusions there. Part of this also includes proposed rate increases, I think is in your packet. And so we just want to bring that to you and kind of let you start to look over it, kind of let you know what we're doing, let you look at these items, get y'all's feedback. And as we do that, get your comments and input as we continue to edit these operating documents, make sure it matches the ordinance, incorporate your feedback, and then kind of get into the ordinance adoption. If it looks like we want to go that direction, get into the ordinance adoption. So, we're not intending to present this as the first read or anything. This is just kind of an updated draft of here's what we got and start to get your input on it. Like I mentioned, one of the items in the packet is a proposed rate increase. We are proposing some increases for the cost of purchase of the spaces at Palmetto and Greenwood cemeteries. Greenwood going from $400 to $600, Palmetto going from $600 to $750. Oak Grove, the new Oak Grove Memorial Garden would stay the same under this proposed. And then the interment fees for weekdays would stay the same at $900, but then increasing the weekends from $950 to $1,050. And that's just to help cover some of our overtime costs for our crews that have to be out there on the weekends and holidays working overtime and at a premium rate. So, and again, that if once we settle on those, I think that would be approved through a resolution, which will attach to the ordinance. So that's one of the items in there. The others are some operating hours of the cemetery, things like that. Closing at sundown, and then what's enforceable after that. Working with Mr. Corey and what we can enforce as to who can be in the cemetery after hours and what kind of activities can and cannot take place there. One item that we learned about today, kind of after this was printed or after your packet was submitted, was indigent burials. It looks like that the county is supposed to take the cost of those indigent burials. So we will be going back to, edit this document to incorporate that information and those kind of things. So those are just some of the things that we're working through. And like I said, we want to kind of present this to y'all. Here's what we got so far and get y'all's input and thoughts on it. We'll come back and, we can sit down however y'all want to do it, offline at a work session or whatever, and get y'all's thoughts and notes and roll that into it and then come up with a document that we all agree on. And then if that's a new ordinance, we'll approve it from there and move forward. So.
Thank you, Director. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes, to save time for tonight, but I have several questions. I'm marking through my book, but first of all, I want to say thank you, even though it's about 15 months, but thank you for getting this draft. I thought the ACM was going to be presenting tonight, but so I'm gonna give you more grace, Mr. Averson. I was ready to rip him to shreds. But anyway, I think that we need to have some sit-down meetings, or I have my input that I wanted to talk to you face to face. But looking at the prices, one thing, I would like to say, we need to look at prices, differentiate between for citizens, residents of the city of Brunswick and non-residents. So you go back to the drawing board, make a bigger chart, which I know that you have some resources there where
Mhm.
other cities have done that as well.
Certainly, yes, we did in that, looked at some other cities. Some do charge a different rate for out of towners and, as opposed to their locals. Some is a consistent rate across the board, but certainly we can relook at that.
Also, another thing I want to, like I said, just, but we'll sit down, have a sit down meeting or I send, because there are, I have different things highlighted. One example would be like, I would like to know, how many plots do we have left in Palmetto? Do you know an estimate close to it?
Very few, like I would say less than 5. Or,
Less than,
I mean, it's
and what about in Greenwood?
Greenwood, we've got plenty for now.
About 60?
Yeah, more than that. We've got a couple of sections left in the back. So, yeah, we've got a good many in Greenwood.
But we do not have any in the historic Oak Grove?
That's right. But plenty in Oak Grove Memorial Garden, the new one.
We do.
Yes.
How many slated for that particular section?
I would have to look at the map, but off the top of my head, I'm going to say there's a couple hundred in there.
A couple hundred?
Yes.
And why was that price range higher?
I'm not sure why that was originally set as a higher rate. That was before I got here that it was set at $1,000. And I don't know if it's location or just, the openness and the new space there, or I don't know why it was originally set higher than the others.
How many spaces again possibly in that particular, in the Oak?
In the Oak Grove,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say there's 200 to 300.
200 to 300.
But
Okay.
I will find out. I've got a map at the office and I will find out and I'll let you know an exact number.
And those are things, but I do have several, but we'll talk, hopefully we could set a meeting to go through page by page, because I have this been a homework project for me. Because yes, and like the indigent barrel you mentioned, I had a question mark about that, but you answered that. But still, what do we consider of course, but there was something else we'll talk about. But thank you. I appreciate this. Is a good document for us, somewhere for us to get started. And trust me, I'm gonna do my part because I asked for it.
Sure. We'll be back in touch with you in, a couple of weeks after y'all have had time to look at it and find out, kind of talk about the best way to kind of sit down and, like I said, get your comments, whether it's one-on-one sessions with everybody or how we want to do that. So
one other thing in this document, I haven't gotten there yet, but you all mentioned, are we going to have, and I'm calling the old Western style, are we just going to have slabs or just the grass, or do we allow people to put pebbles, like in the old Western movie when they have dug up someone, they put the pebbles on top, they dig the hole and you could tell somebody was buried there,
in the two cemeteries that we have, Palmetto and Greenwood, that are pretty well established, there's a wide range of decorations and memorials there, and there's not been much of a restriction on what we've allowed to this point. With Oak Grove, it's a new one, so there's certainly room to, I guess it'd be easier there to kind of make our direction and how, if there's some restrictions or some direction we want to go there.
If we're looking at improving the overall appearance to help improve the overall appearance, because the care, the look, how we do, our cemeteries, I think going forward, we will probably need to implement some guidelines of certain things. It would probably also help with manpower, being able to keep it maintained, reduce the amount of, because when you allow people to leave, in which you all address, not per se the bottles, like, I know it's like a ritual for some people, pour the drink over, my last drink and all that ritualistic things that they do, but they don't need to leave the bottles out there. I have seen, I'm not telling you what somebody told me, I'm telling you what I have seen for myself. The bottles left out there, glass bottles and everything. But but we'll talk. I don't want to take up much time, but this is good. The document is good. It's in a good starting point. I'm finished, Mr.
Thank you for your work on this, Commissioner Atkinson Williams. I know we receive a lot of emails and comments and calls about cemeteries. So I think the work that you've done as a commissioner to move us forward, and thank you, Director Albertson and the Public Works for working through this and modernizing it and getting us to a place where we can start to move forward. So appreciate that. Any other questions or comments from anyone?
I will echo that. I think this is a great starting point. Appreciate your hard work. I have a quick question, and again, this is high level. And honestly, me getting familiar with it, with all the details of the cemeteries, but I was not aware that so do we have a cemetery office, and does somebody man that, and how do we keep track of the records? And I was just a little curious about that.
We do not have a dedicated office anymore.
Okay.
Several years back, that office was kind of combined with customer service at City Hall. So now when somebody wants to purchase a site or arrange a burial, they go to City Hall there, and Jocelyn Swenson she's one of the customer service representatives there, and she handles the cemetery. And so she coordinates with the funeral homes or the families on arranging the burials, and she's the go-between them at the initial go-between between them and our crews arranging the site and everything. And then she maintains the records as well. So
okay, great. Well, I mean, I think that makes sense to have them, kind of a one-stop customer service perspective. Do you know if the records are they digital, or are they all paper? Or?
a little bit of both. There are some digital files, but they need some updating as well.
Awesome.
Need to be caught up to speed as well.
Well, I will mention that again, I'm excited about getting some of this stuff updated. I will put it on our IT's team maybe a little bit to think about maybe down the road. I think it would be great for our citizens and for historical purposes to be able to have somewhere on our website where you could go look to see if one of your family members is buried, and go find the plot or something down the road. So.
And yeah, we talked about, not to get too far off track, but creating a little, once we get everything digitized, creating a kiosk out there or something where you could just walk up and punch in a name or whatever, and it gives you a location and a map. And so it's down the road, but
yeah, awesome. Thank you.
This is a thing. A lot of places in this document states that 24 hours of notification before. I think that needs to be considered about 48 hours, not 24.
48 would be great.
Yeah, because I don't realistically, I mean, you probably can, but realistically, I don't think we could do 24 hours.
We get a lot less than 24 hours notice sometimes. We'd be happy with 24. 48 would just be even better. So that's one of those things as we implement this rates, those kind of operational things, we're going to get some pushback from the funeral homes and those folks that have done it this way for so long. We're asking more of them, more notification, that kind of thing from them. There will be pushback. So we're going to be asking for y'all. Y'all will get those calls. So, we'll be asking for your help and helping us to enforce that, and kind of, but they've done it, a certain way a long time. So they're kind of set in their ways. So.
Commissioner Harris?
Is public comment being addressed for this amendment?
We just,
I think it's on the agenda just purely as an update. I think if we were to bring a full change maybe to the ordinance or the rules and regs, we could definitely ensure that the public had space to comment on those changes.
Okay, yeah, because I've gotten a couple of calls and texts regarding allowing public comment.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Director Alverson.
Sure, thank you.
With that, we will move on to adjournment for executive session for the purposes of,
Real estate and litigation.
I will open it for a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we adjourn to executive session for purposes of real estate and litigation.
Hearing first, do I hear a second?
second,
Hearing first and second, all those in favor show by sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, we are adjourned for executive session. We are back from executive session and no action was taken. I will open it for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Hearing it as first, I will be the second. All those in favor show by sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Hearing none, we are adjourned.